I'm David Hanlon from The Right Mind. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with many extraordinary people. I never do their job. My job is to unpack whatever it is stopping them being excellent at what they do. Sarah Forster was one of those people who came into my world, and I hope you enjoy her story as much as I have working with her.
Life on a cattle property is physically demanding. Early mornings, long days spent in the saddle or the stockyards, extreme heat, the dust, the flies and the isolation. After a day like that, you're really looking for your pillow at night. But what if you're also an ultramarathon runner? Now, if you're not sure what that is, it's someone who runs a very, very long way compared to a marathon runner who just runs a very long way. I have described Sarah Forster's life and I've been so looking forward to catching up with her. I really hope you enjoy listening to her story too. Hi Sarah, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today.
Hi Kelly, thanks for having me.
I know you've been out running already this morning, so which puts me to shame. But now Sarah, you live on Esmerelda Station, which is up in the Gulf, and I think it's 1 million acres, is that right?
Yeah, so it's about 800 kilometres west of Cairns, just to put it in perspective, where it is.
So tell me a bit about Esmerelda, like how many cattle you run, and you and Bryce are the managers there, aren't you?
Yeah, so we run about 20,000 head of grey Brahman breeders and usually turn off 14 to 15,000 weaners a year. So, it's 1 million acres, so it's a pretty big property. And we were fairly young when we started managing here, so I think Bryce was only 24. So we've been here for 8 years now. So, Sarah, you didn't originally come from a big isolated place. So how did you cope when you first went out there? Because I think it's really hard for people to get their head around that isolation. Yeah, most definitely. So I grew up on a cane farm, a sugar cane farm, and it was 30 kilometres out of Ingham, which is in North Queensland also. So I guess it wasn't that far out of town, but when I first moved to Esmerelda, it was a little bit of a shock for me. The isolation was huge. I'd come from a job on the tablelands and I had a group of people around me all of the time. I had my running friends, I had my cycling friends. I'd go to swimming training 3 or 4 times a week, and the biggest thing for me was when I came to Esmerelda, my husband was never going to live in town. So we spent 3 years living away from each other and talking on the phone, and he'd come home once every 3 months and I'd visit once every 6 months, and we sort of worked it like that. And we did 3 years and we was sort of like, it's not going to work. And so I decided to take the move and come out here. And I never envisioned myself being a manager's wife or a co-manager on a cattle station. It was never really a goal for me or a career choice, but I guess that's what happens. You support each other. And Bryce was your career choice by the sounds of it. Yeah, and look, he is the most supportive person, and if I say to him, I've just found this race, and he's like, oh, another one, where is it now? And but he is always there to support me. And if I go for a run, he's like, how was your run today? And he's always really interested and asks the right questions. And I think it's been a really big learning curve for the both of us, because I was in a pretty tough place when I first moved out here, and I found it really difficult to find my way or find something that was mine, because the guys all sit down and drink beer in the afternoons and talk about their day, and I sort of wanted to go for a run, and it was really hard. And I can honestly say that it's taken me a good 5 years and I've only just really settled into my life in the last 2 years. But yeah, up until then it was pretty tough.
Yeah, well, it's good that you didn't give up anyway. And Sarah, I know that you had a few struggles with your mental health or mind health, as this friend of mine likes to refer to mental health, which I think is a much better term, really. So you struggled with your mind health from your late teens. So what happened that you started to have trouble? And
I don't really know where it stems from. I guess if I look back now, I've always been a little bit different from my siblings, but I'm a more sensitive person, and things affect me a little bit more than they would a lot of other people. Like if someone says something to me, I find it really hard to just brush it off, especially if it's a negative comment. Like I find that I really take stuff like that to heart, and I probably overthink it a lot and just let it get to me. But I think it just stemmed from slightly probably hereditary. Like my grandmother and my father have both struggled as well. And I guess just in today's society, I feel like there's so much pressure to be this person. Like when you finish school, you're supposed to have this whole idea of what you would like to do and where you would like to be. And I guess I never had that. Like I never really had this, I want to be a doctor, so I'm going to go and do, like I'm going to go and be a doctor. I never had that. And I used to struggle with that because I felt like I should have had it and I should have been this person that was expected of me. And I don't know, it's really hard to explain. Like I can't really explain it very well. I'm not very good with words.
No, I think no, you're right. I think you did explain it very well, and you hit the nail on the head with the pressure and also that it's a bit hereditary. But I think everybody is different, and if you are extremely sensitive, that can, and you do take things to heart. Like I'm probably a little bit like you, and in that regard, and I do overthink things as well, but I'm trying to be better. But I have friends that say, when I got to 50, I just thought, well, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. But I still I still do care what people think, But I think you do, I don't know, gain a bit more self-confidence as you go along too in your life, don't you? But so why did you start running, Sarah? Was that kind of to help you through that, depression that you had, or?
Yeah, so I kind of used it as an outlet a little bit. And then I found myself staying away from the house longer and longer and longer, and I was sort of in a place where I was having a lot of trouble, not with my marriage, but accepting what I had signed up for. And like I said, I didn't ever really expect to live out here. And I guess there was probably a lot of blame. I found myself blaming Bryce, like, if you could live in town, then I'd have the life that I want. And then I was thinking, well, maybe it's not the life that I want. Like maybe I need to do something, shape my life a little bit differently to what I expected. Like, I'd get a lot of jealousy from my friends still going and cycling and having coffee dates on the weekends. And I felt like I was missing out. And I think that was a huge part of my second probably decline into depression. But we refer to it as the bastard. So when when I feel like I'm sort of drifting off a little bit, Bryce will be like, "How's the bastard?" And we sort of like, it's sort of like a light-hearted way of describing it, and we sort of talk about it a little bit more. And I think that's got a lot to do with, we had a few sessions with a gentleman called David Hanlon from The Right Mind, and he's based in Brisbane. So we were actually flying to Brisbane to see him.
Okay.
he was just fantastic, and it was just,
he's a life coach, is he?
He runs sort of like people management courses and how personalities should get along together. And I first had the opportunity of using him when we worked for Paraway, and we went and did a management course, like a people management course. And Bryce and I have sort of kept in touch with him, and yeah, we went down, we were flying to Brisbane to see him, and then we'd have a weekly phone call, and he sort of said to me, you know, why are you running so long? And I was like, because I don't want to go back to the house. I wanted to just stay away. I didn't want to be here. And he sort of said, so like you're using it as an escape, not as something that's healthy for you. And I'd never thought of it like that. I'd never thought of it as using it to escape my life here. So when he posed that question to me, it sort of really made me think, and it sort of made me feel a little bit selfish that I had been using that time to sort of be away from what I should have been doing and making right at home. And he said to me, well, why don't you start channeling it into something? Like, why don't you have a goal? And I can tell you now, I had never had goals in my life. I've never had financial goals. I'd never had career goals. I'd never had running goals. And when he said that to me, I was like, I've never done that before. I've never had that thought that maybe I should have a goal. Yeah, I guess that's where it started. He put into my head, well, channel it into something. And amongst other things, like I really feel like that's helped a lot, and setting goals together, and like I'm a completely different person to what I was 10 years ago. I feel so level-headed, and it's my way of life now, I think, and he's really helped me a lot. Yeah.
I know that because I listened to another interview that you did, Sarah, and you mentioned that you and Bryce, like Bryce is very supportive, and you talk to him and you know, about what's going on in your mind. So how, because Bryce must have been really worried about you and about your marriage, I suppose, as well. So how important was it for you to be able to speak openly to him without being self-conscious about, you know, just to be open?
I've always been a person that keeps things inside. I've never been much of a talker. I probably got my dad to thank for that. He's pretty introverted as well. And yeah, so I guess it has been really helpful. And Bryce is a talker, so if he's got a problem, he says, righto, this is the problem, let's fix it. And whereas I was more like, okay, I'll just hide and it'll go away. And it doesn't. And I guess like now when we talk about things, you feel such a relief, and an immediate relief. And yeah, that it has been a really big learning curve. But it just, I think it's just so like makes you so much stronger. Your relationship is so much stronger.
That's what I was going to say. It really must just improve, like cement that trust you have in each other.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I guess I've always been embarrassed about talking about mental health and what's going on, and been embarrassed about what he might think of what I'm thinking. You know, if something's bothering me, I tend to, oh, what do you think about this? You know, I think this, and he's like a sounding board, and okay, I don't think that you should let that worry you. Or whereas before I might have stewed on it for days and days and days, and then that would have been a decline in my mood straight away. So yeah, I definitely think that communication and having that, and I think that's due to David too. Like a lot of that was when we were seeing him together, he would ask us questions, and then he would see me, and then we'd talk, and then he'd see Bryce separately, and him and Bryce would talk, and then we'd sit back in and talk together. And he really showed me that it wasn't something to be embarrassed about. And I really think that was my turning point, was spending time with him and opening up to Bryce. And I think that only makes the relationship stronger, definitely.
He sounds like a good man, your Bryce.
Yeah, he is. He's pretty amazing. I think you saw his head there before. He poked his head around the corner, so he's listening, I think.
Sarah, tell me about the ultras, because I mentioned to you that I had listened to David Goggins' book, who is an ultramarathon runner and a former Navy SEAL in the States, and I just thought, why would anybody ever want to put themselves through that? But now I know you, and you do the same thing. So talk me through the ultras, because how far they are and how long you run for.
Oh, we were talking this morning because so on days off here on the station, I run a little. If the guys want to come and do a little CrossFit session, or if they want to do some yoga, we normally do a workout, and then we'll do a little bit of yoga, and it's just a nice way to bond and chill out after a week of working together. And
can I just say one thing there, Sarah? If you offered that to me, I would feel very scared, very scared.
No, I'm not that nasty, but this morning probably a little bit nasty. But so this morning we had 150 burpees, and I said to them, look, it's achievable. We'll just break it down into tens, and we'll do 15 tens. That'll be, we'll work it out. It'll be fine. And when you start counting down and you're like, all right, we did our 10, and then we did another 10, and then we did another 10, and all of a sudden we were at 110, and I'm like, yep, righto, 40 to go, let's go. And it's just like, it's such a mood booster. And we were talking about running, and I said, it's all a gigantic mental game. It really is. And all I do is I break it down into segments. So I might break it down into 10Ks, I might break it down into 20Ks, but righto, okay, I'll run 10Ks. I've just done 10Ks, I can do another 10Ks. And then I get to that point and I'm like, I can do another 10Ks, that's fine, I've just done it. And I think a lot of it is tricking your mind into thinking that it's not going to be that bad. But also the fact is that there is an end. It's going to finish. It's not going to be forever. You're not going to feel like this forever. But then when you get to that point of finishing, it's such an amazing feeling. Like, it's such a feeling of accomplishment. It's such a feeling of you're in the minority, that a lot of people are never going to do that in their life. My greatest achievement so far would have to be the Delirious W.E.S.T that I've just completed in February. So it was 220 miles, 350.9 kilometres. The race director is known for not being very accurate with his distances. And but it was just, I wanted something that was going to test me. I wanted something that was going to scare me. And my coach and I, we always chat and say, if I find a goal, it needs to terrify me. It needs to absolutely scare me so that I know that it's big enough.
She's online as well, isn't she? She helps you.
Yeah. So I do all of my coaching online. And I rang her and I was like, I've just found a 200-mile race. And she's like, what? Again? And I was like, yes. So, yeah, we sort of started planning, and as the closer the race got, I would ring her and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, Sarah. I'm having nightmares about it and feeling really anxious about it. And she's like, you'll be fine. Just get through it. We'll just run aid station to aid station. And I was like, no, I'm terrified. I don't know if I can do this. And she's like, you can do it. You'll be fine. And then we started talking, and I'd say, I did the maths and I wrote, she's a big planner, and I'm obviously not a planner like we've discussed. And she's like, I want you to step it all out kilometre by kilometre by kilometre. I want you to write it down, what each of those kilometres looks like, what you think you're going to feel like at different points in the race. And I want you to pinpoint timings that you think that you'll be at aid stations. And so I had this massive plan. It was like a 7-page plan for this race. And I said to her, I really think that I can do it in 72 hours. And she's like, okay. And I said, do you think that I can do it in 72 hours? And she said, I'm not comfortable with committing to that because we've never done something this big before. And I said to her, look, I've done the timing, I've looked at the aid stations, I've done the distances, and I really think that I can do it in 72 hours. And not once did she ever commit to me and say, yeah, I definitely think you can do that. Like, she was supportive the whole time. And yeah, it was amazing. Like, I'd come in, I was fortunate enough to have her come to the race with me. So I had a crew. I had one of my really good friends that lives on the Tablelands that I worked for her for 4 years at the vet clinic. And I had my coach, Sarah, and I had my husband, Bryce, and my mum and dad both came over to Western Australia for me. So I had a massive support team. It's like, I can't even begin to describe how thankful and fortunate I am to have those 5 people that would drop everything for me to come and watch me suffer. Like, I wrote in the manual, like I printed that thing out for every single person, printed my plan out, and at the very bottom I said, do not let me quit. I am going to want to quit. Do not let me quit.
Are they able to be with you for the whole race, or do they just meet you at checkpoints? Or
this race is kind of a little bit different to the races that I've done previously. So most of the races that I've done up until now have been self-supported races. So you bust out to location and everything's in your backpack on your back. So 7 days worth of food, your bedroll, toiletries, like hygienic items, sanitizer, it's all on your back. So most of the races that I've done up until now have been self-supported races where, like around the Grand Canyon. So we were bussed out to the Grand Canyon and spent 7 days running through the Grand Canyon. And so I didn't see anyone other than the people that I was racing with for 7 days. So I think this race, I could see my family, my friends at every single aid station. And it was so beautiful to have them there. Even the volunteers were fantastic, cheering you in. They don't know you. They have no idea who you are, but they're excited for the fact that you're out there and you're just giving it a go. And they were just amazing. And so I it was pretty lucky to be able to see them at every aid station. And I think that sort of helps lift your spirits when you are hurting. It's a little bit easier to get out of that funk and start again. And like the first night, I was going really well up until probably 110 Ks. Like, I was doing really good time. I was spot on my program, and I hit the 110 Ks, and Mum had made me some tomato soup, and so I sat down and I had some soup, and the girls massaged my legs, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. So they should be in bed sleeping and resting, but they were out and touching my sweaty clothes and whatever else. And the track had been really good up until then. It had been really runnable, and I sort of hit that point and I was feeling fantastic, and I got my poles and headed out again. And the next 15 Ks, I think it was just horrible. I don't know what I expected because it had been so runnable up until then. And then I hit this, and it's at a point where you're supposed to be asleep. you know, like your body is supposed to be asleep. And I got really overwhelmed and let the negativity get in, I guess. And I just found myself in this really bad funk. Like, I came into the next aid station and I was bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, I want to go home. I want to go home. I don't want to do this anymore. And they laid me down on the blanket and covered me. And it was sort of like, it was a little bit cool because here at Esmerelda, we hadn't had a day under 40 degrees for like 3 months. And then we went over there. It was like 10 degrees at night time, 8 to 10 degrees at night. So that was quite cold for me. And I think I just got a little bit overwhelmed and I just sort of hit a wall, and I went in there and they gave me a coffee and I was crying and crying. And they're like, you're not quitting. You're not quitting. You can get back out there. And I was like, I want to go home. I don't think I can do this for another 2 days.
Oh, that must have been so hard for them.
It was just the enormity of, I just let that get to me. Like, up until then, I'd been breaking it down. And then I got to that point and I'm like, oh my God, I still have 220 kilometers to go. I've got to do this for another 2 days. And I just let that get to me. And yeah, it was really tough. And I think from having conversations with my crew and my parents and after the race, and I really feel like it was difficult for them to see me like that. And, you know, my mum and dad said to me, it was actually, they didn't realize how much went into it and how emotional it really is to do something like that. And, you know, like Mum said, she found it really difficult to see me in pain and pushing myself that much. She found that really difficult to understand and to sort of like take in, because neither of my parents are runners. And yeah, it was sort of just a different, I don't know, experience for them, I suppose, where they'd never realized how much emotional energy goes into something like that and how much I am going to hurt. But I sort of got past that point, and they kicked me back out onto course, and Bryce said to me, he's like, the only way that you're getting home or going home is from the finish line. So get your ass back out there and keep running. And I was like, okay. And then...
Lucky you told them not to let you quit.
I don't think they would have let me quit anyway, but I said to them, like, that was the most important thing, because I knew in my mind that I was going to hit a spot where I was not going to want it anymore. And I think that's the point where that makes you stronger. And like it, after that, I think I just got hungry. Like I wanted to finish it and I wanted to do well for them. And I think that's the biggest driving point for me is it's such a financial commitment to do something like this. You know, race fees are expensive. The training that I do, like I train 38 hours a week easily. And that's a huge commitment away from your partner. It's a huge commitment away from life, I guess, you know. So it's just like, it's this huge thing. And the driving point is I've tried so hard to get there. And these people, I always feel like they're counting on me. Like they're counting on me to get it done and to finish it. And that's what really, I don't know, that's what really spurs me forward, I guess, is wanting to make them proud. And just, it is what it is, I suppose.
Sarah, how much sleep do you get? Like, do you get a full night's sleep or is that up to you? How much sleep, how much running you do through the night, or how does that work?
So that race had a 110-hour limit, like race cap. So you had to get the 350 kilometers done within 110 hours. But when I had mapped out my race, I had mapped out 10-minute rests every now and again. I was never going to pull up and sleep for the night. I always had in my mind that I would do a 10-minute nap, I would get up, I would run for however long I could, and then I'd have another 10-minute nap when I needed to. And that was sort of my goal. And as I got further into the race, that changed. So I had a 10-minute nap on the second night. Yeah, a 10-minute nap on the second night at about midnight. I laid down, and from 130 kilometres, I could have a pacer. So my coach paced me. She came over to help pace, and my friend as well. And then I was actually pretty fortunate. Bryce ran 25 Ks, and he's never run ever. And he just busted 25 Ks. And I was like, where did that come from? But yeah, so I had a 10-minute nap, and I was with Sarah at that point. So she just let me lay down on the side of the track and put a timer on for 10 minutes. And she said as soon as I laid down, I was fast asleep. And she woke me up after 10 minutes. And I was like, was that only 10 minutes? Are you sure? Did you let me sleep in? And she's like, no, it was 10 minutes. And so we got up and we kept running, and I got into the third day, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning. Oh, no, it might have been a bit earlier than that, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And we rolled into the aid station, and I had some pancakes and had a coffee. And I said to the guys, I really think that I need to have a sleep. Like, I need to have a half-hour block. And they were like, righto. So we had camper vans that were set up as the crew vehicles. So they piled me into a camper van with the doona, and then they fixed all my pack and made sure that my water bottles were done and everything. And I got a full half an hour, like I was asleep. And Bryce said he came in to wake me up, and he's like, you were dreaming. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm tired. And so that was it. That was, I had 40 minutes sleep over the duration of the race. So it took me 71 hours and 13 minutes, I think, to do the 350 kilometers. And
wow.
Yeah, I had 40 minutes sleep. So that's like unheard of. I'm the best sleeper ever. Like, I can sleep a 14-hour night like that, like no problems at all.
So how do you recover? Like after that race, how did you recover? Like, what's your recovery look like?
I actually signed up for a second 200 miler, which was supposed to be on the 3rd of June. So following that race, I was to have 4 weeks off. And in that 4 weeks, there wouldn't be much happening at all. And then after 4 weeks, we were getting straight back into a 12-week training block that would then have me ready for the next 200 miler. But with the coronavirus, that's been postponed until October. So it's actually, I feel more confident about that, because I've sort of haven't really rested a great deal in the last few years. Like, I've sort of gone race to race to race. And I think that I need to give the 200 miler the credit that it deserves, and the toll that it really took on my body to complete something like that. And I think I'm 6 weeks finished now. So I think it's been 6 weeks since the finish of the race. And it took a good 4 weeks for my ankles, the swelling in my ankles, to be reduced. I dislocated my shoulder about 40 kilometers from the finish line, and it was out for a really long time. And I've had a lot of, I've since dislocated it again at home here. So my shoulder's taken a long time to sort of heal, I guess, and it's still not the same. But even now, I probably am still really tired. Like, I drove the road train for the day on last Tuesday, I think it was, and I was so fatigued by the end of the day, and I did five trips. And the end of the day, I said to Bryce, I'm wrecked. I'm so wrecked. And we've had a couple of big weeks here. Like, we've been mustering and processing cattle, so it's been really busy, and we've had some long days. And I think my body probably is still tired from the race. So it's just about eating properly. I've got a sauna here in the house, so I use the sauna quite regularly. Lots of stretching. So occasionally you can find me on the floor in my office, and if I'm talking on the phone for work, I'm usually stretching on the floor as well. It's been a bit of a learning curve, obviously, because it's the first time I've ever raced something that long in such a short period of time.
Sarah, you mentioned before about your diet. So how do you go eating, making sure you're eating well with fruit and veggies when you live so far away? And I know what it's like to, we don't have the luxury of going to the supermarket every day. So how do you get around that? How do you make sure you're eating well enough to keep your body in top form?
Yeah, I guess we eat really well here. When you think about it, we're not that far away from Cairns. And so I do our grocery orders once a month, and I'll get a massive amount of fruit and veg in. We've got a huge cold room, so we wrap it all in individually in newspaper, and it lasts for 4 weeks. It's fantastic. So we eat really well. There's no complaints about food at all. It's really, it up until now has been really easy to get food. The last 3 weeks I've found it quite difficult to get stuff, but that's due to our current situation.
Yeah. And Sarah, what does your, because you're obviously very busy, and I know, when you're mustering especially, you're getting up really early and going late at night. So how do you fit in your training around, your everyday work life? Because that must be really tough.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky to have Sarah and Bryce. They're my two key people there. So Sarah's really good. She'll do my program up in fortnightly blocks, and I'll have a look at it and fit it in with our program, what we're doing, and make sure it fits and make sure I can do it. And then if there's something that doesn't fit, or I don't think that I'll quite get to it, we sort of change it around so that I can do it. With work, I normally run out to wherever we're mustering. So I'll get up a couple of hours earlier, pack my stuff.
So what's a couple of hours earlier?
3 o'clock. 3.
Yeah.
I'm pretty early to bed at night time. But yeah, so I'll get up. Most of my running's done by headlamp anyway, so it's and I'll pack all my stuff the night before that I'll need for the next day. Get up, and then Bryce will get up obviously at the normal time. He'll saddle my horse, make my breakfast, make my lunch, and then he'll bring all that out. And then when I get there, I get changed, have my breakfast, jump on my horse, and go for the day. Or if we're working in the yards, I'll run to the yards, and then he'll do the same thing, pack my breakfast, pack my lunch, bring it all out for me. Or the other day I might do it in the afternoon. So I was driving the truck and I said to him, "Can you do the last trip for me?" And he's like, "Yep, no worries," so I can fit my run in. And he jumped in the truck, I jumped out, put my running gear on and went for my run. And it's just, I think it's about it's that support that we spoke about before. It's it's really nice to have someone so understanding and supportive to help me achieve my goals, I guess. Yeah.
It must be that goal setting too, and having that vision in front of you, because honestly, if I've been mustering all day, Sarah, I come inside and I don't even feel like cooking dinner, let alone going for a run. And then, if I had to get up at 3 o'clock the next morning to go for a run, I'd be thinking, oh, I'm going to die. Oh gosh, so you're very dedicated.
It's that mind game again.
Sarah, I meant to ask before, so for instance, when you were running the race in Western Australia, how many do you just have the one pair of running shoes, or do you go through a number of pairs? How long does a pair of running shoes last you?
I normally get probably 3 to 4 months out of a set of trainers. So I've got a friend who works at Ingingy Performance Products in Brisbane, and he's been amazing for supplying my shoes and helping me out with gear. And so yeah, he's been awesome. So I know, like, I've got a pretty wide array of shoes, and I had packed 3 pairs for that race, and I started in a pair, and I think I ran 50 Ks in them, and it just wasn't working. Like, I wasn't comfortable, and I had purchased a pair of shoes a size bigger, just to compensate for the swelling in your feet after such a long period of time. And I actually changed into the larger size shoes after 50 Ks, and I had absolutely no dramas. I wore those shoes for the rest of the race. The girls took them off 3 times maybe and changed my socks for me, just so I had fresh socks. And but yeah, that one set of shoes pretty much ran the whole race.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that the other day and thinking, gosh, you know, I wonder how many pairs of shoes these ultramarathon runners go through. Now, I just have one other question, and it's actually from my friend Susan. And so I've written it down so I didn't forget. But Susan wants to know how you maintain your focus and be inspired to get out of bed every morning. And do you break it down to short-term goals, or is it the long-term goal that keeps you motivated?
I guess it's probably a hunger thing. The more competitive that I get, the better the results that I am achieving make me hungrier for more. And I guess that's probably a driving factor as well. But that has a downfall as well, because the more pressure I put on myself to do well, but like it's all a mind game. There is going to be an end point, and the end point is the finish line of the race for me. So if I'm buggered, absolutely buggered, and I know that I've got to go and do some 800 meter intervals, 16-kilometer run after working a day in the paddock, I know that I'm buggered, and if I go out and do that, that is going to make me so much better, because I think that's probably an advantage for me. You know, most people might work in an office for the day and then they have to go out and do their training, so they're not doing their training tired, whereas I'm doing my training absolutely shattered and I'm still getting it done. And that's only going to help me in the long run, isn't it? Like, it's only going to make me a better athlete, and cope with circumstances that other people don't have the opportunity to cope with. I think I owe a lot to my location and my lifestyle, I think, because I've got such a different lifestyle to everyone else. And you know, like, I still want to get it done. I still want to tick those boxes, because I know that when it gets hard during a race, I'm going to be able to get through and get to the other side. And I guess, that is a huge driving factor, is I know that I've already done the hard work.
Yeah, Sarah, I have no doubt that whatever comes across your path in your life, you will get through it with flying colours, because you've just given yourself so much resilience to do what you do. It's incredible. I'm blown away by you. That is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Oh, no. Thank you very much. That was, it was so good to talk to you. I was so looking forward to it, and we've been toing and froing a little bit, haven't we? But we finally caught up, and I'm so grateful to you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I was so nervous.
But you know what? One thing you haven't done is inspired me to be an ultra runner or become an ultra runner. I think I'll just stick to little program I do at home. But you're amazing. Thanks so much, Sarah.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
Thanks so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please try to remember to just click on the subscribe button so we can keep you updated with everything that's happening. Thank you.